The Zone Coverage Podcast Network.
They may be drinkers, Robin, but they're also human beings.
Hell yeah, let's get Stinko.
Welcome, Giles and the Goalie Podcast. Third anniversary edition of the Giles and the Goalie Podcast. And it would not be complete with vintage Giles and the Goalie audio equipment.
Yeah,
as
so
we are working on today.
we're using equipment we use, it's been 2 years? No, it's been a year and a half-ish now.
Yeah, it's been a good long while since we had to go with this setup.
It's not a good idea when this is our backup.
No. This is why we've been keeping it in studio for a while.
Right.
We don't tempt fate.
Yeah, this is what happens when you leave the comfy confines of the Zone Coverage Podcast Studio.
Well, if you don't get a podcast in by late afternoon Sunday, you're out of luck. So
we have
to return to Unnamed Bar and Grill, the site of many shows here.
Many lost shows too.
For those who are new to this show, my name is Giles Farrell. I try to host this show every week. I sometimes do a good job. Across the table for me is Ben Remington.
Hello.
And we are, like I said, back at Unnamed Bar and Grill. Third anniversary show. Hard to believe this has been a 3-year podcast. I don't think any of us at Poor Richards, when we pitched the idea of a podcast to John Bonas, thought this would be going 3 years down the line.
I thought we would have had national syndication by now, but that's just me.
Yeah, I hear the crap that's nationally syndicated. I might be biased, but I think we're better. But I guess there's not a market nationally for Minnesota Wild coverage.
Yeah,
I guess that falls under more of a local thing.
Yeah.
If only the Wild had Connor McDavid or Sidney Crosby, then there'd be a market for it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I have a Grind the Gears. For the second week in a row, it's a Grind Your Gears that's going to hit both of us.
Oh, God.
You know what really grinds my gears?
This last week, a Friday news dump. Or no. It was
Thursday.
And then Nike officially announced it on Friday.
Yeah.
Then Nike announced the Olympic hockey jerseys for the upcoming 2018 Winter Olympics in Pyeongchang. And my goodness, are those an atrocity. And as I noted, it appears we are indeed entering the 90s era of jerseys again. Or at least Nike is trying to rehash the 90s.
Well, the sleeves, for sure. I'm with you. This is so weird. There's jumping the shark, and then there's whatever this is. I don't know.
The USA was the first one to announce the jersey. And as it should, it got very negative reaction.
Right.
With the garbage on the sleeves, or whatever you call it, apparently representing the bald eagle.
The eagle feathers, yeah.
What? Why? What are you doing? This is bad. This is universally across the board bad. No. You can't make up crap like this. You made this a universal thing on all your jerseys, and you just found something that's culturally to that country to make up for it. Feathers from the bald eagle, yeah, bite me. That's a load of garbage. You put the same stuff on Korea, and what are we calling that?
I don't know. I called the Czech team, the Norwegian team, and the Swiss team all have the same design. The same weird zigzaggy, jagged design on their sleeves, and I don't know if I said it was a Czech shark teeth, but that just doesn't make any sense either.
Nike did not have all the jerseys in their release. They were briefly in there, but I was able to find it via other sites.
Sure.
And just skimming through, like the Swiss, like what is
the Swiss might be the best jersey of them all, but it still has the stupid crap on the
If
sleeves.
you're going to put stupid crap on the sleeves, put the stupid crap out of Chur Switzerland on the sleeves.
It wouldn't be an anniversary episode without Chur Switzerland.
Korea, what are we doing with Korea? First of all, the Nike swoosh is just an atrocity. It's like, it's supposed to look like a blade on a hockey skate. Okay, wanking motion.
No, yeah, that's why it's the same it's always been. The Korean one was especially offensive to me because it's like, first you've got the alarm clock font on Korea.
We couldn't find anything better for a font?
And then you've got what looks like the Dunder Mifflin hockey team stacks of paper all the way up and down the body. I don't understand what they're going for there.
Japan. What?
I don't know.
Like,
and if you look at that template, it's the exact same as Finland and Germany. There's nothing to set any jerseys apart. They're all
when was the last time Japan was in the Olympic hockey tournament?
Nagano?
Oh, God. And the other thing that really kills me is, like, Japan, Korea, like, their word mark is in English.
Oh, yeah, and Germany.
And then you get... And Germany too.
And I don't know. Have you done your rankings article yet?
I haven't yet.
Okay. I
was saving it for after this podcast because I wanted to save the quality content for our podcast.
Sure, but so I make the point in the article that I gave you a blurb. People in Germany have no idea what Germany is. Yeah, it's the Bundesrepublik of Deutschland. Yeah. They have no clue what Germany is, and their jerseys say freaking Germany on the front.
Then you scroll down and you got Norway. Yeah. There's a ship on the jersey. It's not just a shoulder patch.
Right.
It's full.
It's like a ghost, and it's ghosted in too. It's a ghost ship. It's a Viking ghost ship.
Viking ghost ship. Oh my God!
As if Norway hockey wasn't enough of like a laughing stock as it is. Poor guys.
We've got Sweden, and it looks like at first glance that their respected jersey was not touched. Then you look closer at the sleeves, and you see that they've got a little bit of discoloring on the sleeves. Oh, yeah. So they still mix their template into Sweden, but an otherwise good look. So from afar, when you're watching it, you're not going to be offended by it.
Right. That's how bad these jerseys are. They screwed up Sweden. How do you screw up Sweden? Like, those are the most classic.
Yeah, Sweden is universally
national
the
jerseys,
best Olympic jersey out
right?
there.
Like, if year to year, they'll be top 3 every time. Depending on what the U.S., Canada, Czech, whatever rolls out, Sweden's always top 3. You screwed up Sweden's jerseys. How do you do that?
And then Canada
has body armor.
The leaf looks terrible. I don't know why they've tried to incorporate black. I have Canadian friends who, to this day, don't understand why black is being incorporated. It should be a simple red and white operation.
Why do they have a third jersey anyway? It's the Olympics. You really play that many games, you need a third option?
Wasn't it the United States that started that?
Probably. I don't know.
Because they did it with throwbacks. They're not even doing a throwback.
Oh, they have a navy and a royal blue jersey. Oh, good.
USA Hockey.
Too bad jerseys.
We're going to be terrible, and we're going to look terrible while being terrible.
Tricolor terrible.
As I said to, I forget who I said it to last week on Twitter, it's like, if we're going to get smoked by the KHL All-Star team from Russia, like, at least let us look dignified while doing so. Nope, we don't get that.
Well, luckily for you, Giles, the KHL might not even be sending their players to the Olympics based on some Russian doping charge with the IOC. I don't know. I don't buy it. I don't think Putin would allow that. I'm sure the KHL already has the Olympics built into their schedule, so I don't know how they're going to... Oh, no, we're just going to take 2 weeks off instead. Yeah, I'm sure you are.
Yeah, right.
I totally buy that.
Yeah, for our full thoughts on these Olympic hockey jerseys, you can find an article coming out this week on zonecoverage.com where Ben and I will opine on them even more.
Roast.
But, we will complain. Minnesota Wild, the team we actually talk about on this podcast. And it was a troubling week for the Minnesota Wild. As we review the previous week, Tuesday, the Wild continued on with their homestand with a game against division rival Winnipeg, and it did not go anywhere close to what they wanted. They lose 2-1, and the highlight of this game, both locally and nationally, as many, many national sites picked up this goal, was the Matt Dumba drop pass intended for Mikhail Granlund, but it was softer than a Donovan McNabb pass when he was on the Vikings. So Nick Ehlers scooped it up and put it into the goal past Alex Stalock, which ended up being the deciding goal. The Wild were able to cut the lead to 2-1 on a Luke Cunnin goal.
Yes.
But
a Nino to Cunnin goal.
The Wild could not score on this, or they could not tie up the game. So the Wild have now dropped their first 2 games of the year to the Winnipeg Jets. I was not pleased with how the Wild played, and we're going to get into a little bit more on a certain aspect of their game, power play. But you got very good goaltending from Alex Stalock. You have a terrible giveaway, and I believe it was a Blake Wheeler goal. That sounds right.
Yeah.
Or no, it was... I forget who it was.
Yeah.
But basically, another solid outing by Alex Stalock that goes to the wayside. I don't know how much of this game you saw, but...
I watched the second half of it. So
Just being at the game, it just... I don't know, it was just... It just seemed the Wild were a little disinterested, and Bruce Boudreau gave his team, and Dumba specifically, an earful in his post-game remarks. Not good.
Yeah, there's the catch, right? The 49ers catch. There was the trade in Montreal. That's what they call the Patrick Waugh trade. There was, what else? The shot. That was the Jordan shot in Cleveland, right? Is that what they call the shot? So was this the turnover?
Maybe.
Well, I mean, the point I'm making is that, the way people reacted to this, and obviously I'm, I guess you could say I'm a fan of Dumba. I think that Dumba is, worth having on the team, which some people don't agree with. I mean, it was a horrific turnover. He'll be the first to tell you it was a horrific turnover. Terrible. And it absolutely cost the Wild the game. But, I mean, the way that some people reacted to this was so violent. It just, I don't know, it bordered on silly how... And you expect that. I mean, you expect overreactions from fans. That's what fans do. That's their job. And maybe in the long run might be a good thing, and we can get into Thursday's game for Dumba in that it was a wake-up call for him because he was not playing well leading up to that, and that kind of added to how brutal that turnover looked, was that he had not had a good season to begin with.
No, yeah, Dumba was benched after that turnover early in the third period.
The entire third period, basically.
It was kind of a debate for the next day and a half and on if he should be scratched the next game. And I know you and I disagreed on what should be done, but Bruce Boudreau came back and said, okay, you're going to play tonight, let's be better. And sure enough, we got a much more better polished Matt Dumba, and he ended up leading the Wild in ice time at 25:58.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if many people know that. He led the Wild in ice time.
Yeah.
I think brains would have exploded if that fact had been more known. But the Wild come back out against the Montreal Canadiens.
Oh, man.
A 6-3 win. The Wild got out 3-0 instantly. And as I said on our Facebook Live post-game show, and I said, because you mentioned last week we saw more of what the other teams, how bad the other teams were playing. It didn't really give us an indication of who this Wild team was. And I felt that's exactly what we got again Thursday night.
Yeah.
Because we saw a very undisciplined, uninterested Montreal Canadiens team led by their goaltender, Carey Price, who the next day was announcing a lower body injury.
Let's say a very injured Carey Price would be the what we found out, because, I watched that game, and, oh, man, I mean, it just, the Nino deflection, not much you can do there. Deflections are hard to stop. The Ennis goal was very pretty, and that was definitely on Montreal's defense. But the other 3 goals, because there was an empty netter, the other 3 goals were just brutal. I mean, absolutely brutal. The Suter goal was horrible. not Carey Price, and obviously he's hurt, and we found that out the next day. So
the shining example was the Dumba goal where he just sent the puck up the boards, and he just very nonchalantly got back into the net, and Dumba just threw it on the net, and it went in because Carey Price was just not there. And what a bad game! My goodness, that was at least you're getting the points you need to get.
Yeah.
Devin Dubnyk had an otherwise good game up until that third goal, which was as I noted, he was in, I'm thinking ahead to Saturday mode. But
I just don't think he saw that one at all. I don't know that it was a lapse it was a lapse in concentration that he didn't track it well, but you could tell when it went in, he had no clue what happened. So, but then, I think it was an all right effort by him, but you have to take advantage of those games because you're not getting points on the games where teams aren't letting you win. Pittsburgh let you win. The Islanders let you win. Montreal let you win. Well, Winnipeg took advantage of the Wild letting them win, essentially. And, the Blackhawks game was, maybe a little bit of a different story, but you have to have those games, with Montreal. They gave you a win. You got to take it. And they did.
And the Wild wrap up their 6-game homestand Saturday night against Chicago Blackhawks. And the Wild just could not capitalize on any chances they got. It looked like Nino Niederreiter had scored a goal in the first period on the power play, which was a very much-needed power play goal, but it went off the post, and it looked like it was going back in off Corey Crawford's back, but instead it missed him, and then his leg swiped it out of the crease.
Yeah.
And the Wild never seemingly recovered from that. They had chances. They just couldn't convert. Corey Crawford, very sharp. Devin Dubnyk, also very sharp.
Yeah, in the first round of the game.
And Chicago scores on the power play with 5.5 minutes to play on a deflection, and then they get an empty net goal to win it 2-0. And it wipes out a very good performance from Devin Dubnyk. And as I'm going to note this week on zone coverage, a big problem I have with the Wild right now is their power play. And there are many, many aspects of the power play that are just dysfunctional.
Mm-hmm.
And as we saw in this game, the Wild didn't have many power play chances, but they weren't getting quality looks on the power play. The Niederreiter one was probably the best one, and it almost went in, but it didn't. And as Bruce Boudreau so obviously stated after the game, when you don't score goals, you're not going to win games in this league.
Right.
And so my deal with the power play is, one, the puck movement is awful.
Yeah.
Like, when you want to watch good power plays, watch the Dallas Stars, watch the Tampa Bay. I watched Tampa Bay the other night, and I'm going to cite this in the article, and their puck movement is outstanding. And you compare that to what the Wild are doing, good Lord.
Yeah.
That is an atrocity.
Yeah, it just seems like they end up just kind of playing ping pong back and forth with the point men, and that's puck movement for the Wild is ping pong back and forth between the point, and then once in a great while you get the puck down deep, and then it spits right back out to the point men again.
My big thing with a power play is you want to move the puck quickly because, one, the defense is moving out of position, and more importantly, you're making the goaltender shift back and forth, getting him off his angles, which is the whole point of this. But when the Wild are holding the puck for seconds on end, you're giving everyone a chance to get to where they need to be. Nobody's out of position. My other problem is shot selection.
Yeah.
And Wes Walls was very blunt about this on Tuesday's broadcast. The Wild are trying to be too cute, and the shots they're getting on the power play, they need to just start throwing pucks on net.
Volume.
And another thing to add to that is the Wild are just getting perimeter shots. They're not getting good looks for shots. So again, that probably adds more into they're trying to be too cute because they're trying to set up a perfect play that they can't hit a pass on, and the puck goes the other way. Like, that is another thing. And then I think this next one I have is more tied into the fact that two guys who very much qualify in this department were gone one of which is still gone, Charlie Coyle, but Nino Niederreiter returned this last week. But The Wild have no net front presence on the power play.
Yeah.
Nobody is standing in front of the goaltender. So when you're giving an NHL goaltender a good look at the puck, this is another thing Wes Walz said. He's going to make the save because he's an NHL goaltender. You're not just going to fire the puck on net and hope it goes through him like NHL 04.
Yeah. It's not... You, on the power play, you can't just hope for regular shots going through. You have to take advantage of the fact that you have the man advantage and moving the goalie like you're talking about. You know, there's a reason why Chicago scored. That Anisimov goal on Saturday night, it was a beautiful tip. Those tips going from high to low like that, when you can knock down a shot from the point and completely change. I mean, Dubnyk had that puck in his glove. He tracked it well, but it changed direction about 18 inches before it got to his glove. Those are impossible to stop. And there's a reason why those plays are successful and why those plays you see out of successful hockey teams. There's even some people that'll tell you that's a low percentage shot, but if you have bodies in front of the net, it's not a low percentage shot if you can get a piece of it. You can get a piece of it, it's an incredibly high percentage shot.
And it would be nice to have somebody who could maybe deflect a Ryan Suter wrist shot.
Yeah.
That's my other point on this as defensive pairs on the power play is becoming very troublesome for me. I feel like at this stage, everybody's going to get heartburn when Mike Riley and Matt Dumba are the two defensemen on the ice. But on the power play, I feel like they're the better pair right now because their skill set very much is what you want on a power play. They move the puck quicker. They shoot the puck quicker. They don't lollygag around. They know what they're doing. Exactly. And you get Ryan Suter and Jared Spurgeon out there, and Ryan Suter just loves to do whatever he does. It's like sometimes I just feel like when he has the puck, he just feels like he's back on his farm in Wisconsin, just cutting the grass, just taking his sweet time.
He's on the rider with a beverage in the cup holder.
Just like, nobody's going to stop me. And Jared Spurgeon, I give him credit. He's been very actively shooting on the power play recently, but he's not hitting the net a lot.
Yeah.
So he's not exactly, I don't know, maybe the best option to put out there was Suter, who just...
I think Suter is more the issue with that pairing, and I'm fine with those two being the second pair defensemen on the power play. You'd prefer that to, Quincy and Brodin, but you've got to find a way to have Spurgeon run the puck more because Suter gets it in the middle of the ice at the blue line, and like you said, he just holds it. He holds it, or he skates backwards and attempts that soft wrister, from 50 feet away, and it doesn't make any sense.
Ryan Suter and Mikko Koivu are the biggest abusers of the puck movement violation.
Yeah,
where they're holding it too long, and they're just you gotta move the puck. Like when you're not scoring, just move the puck and start shooting. Like as Wes Walz put it. Also, added to this because I missed the Pittsburgh game last week, so we didn't get to talk about it. But
right.
Wes Walz being in the booth as color commentary is an astonishing upgrade over Mike Greenley.
It is definitely from a content standpoint.
I feel like I'm going to learn something.
Right. And it's nice to have a guy who's attempting to teach you things in the booth versus Greenley, who might be a little more on the entertaining side than Walz. I think Walz's delivery needs a lot of work.
Right.
And I don't think his comfort level is super high in the booth. But his content and what he teaches the viewer is just so far superior. It's not really even close.
Like, I want someone in the booth who's going to be, engaging and you feel like you're going to learn something. Like, hockey is very much a sport where if somebody's turning it on for the first time, you want them to be learning.
Yeah.
Like, you just don't want somebody sitting there spitting out cliched hockey analysis. And
Greenley is like Bert Blyleven without the fun. You can say what you want. I mean, I know some people are so hateful of Bert, but Bert at least has a personality in the box. And Greenlay, plays up kind of his dopiness a little bit, but not enough to be
I don't know if we want,
entertaining.
I don't know if we want the Greenlay personality to come out.
Well, maybe.
But as I long ago, since this is our 3rd anniversary podcast, this is kind of fitting that I reference this, but long ago on our other Wild Extra podcast, the 5 Minute Major, we were going through and ranking the NHL broadcast teams.
Sure.
And when we were doing the Central Division, we just kind of wondered, like, why does Minnesota accept having such a, mediocre broadcast team? For a hockey mad market, you would think they would want better, but everyone, I guess, or majority, fine with the tandem of LaPanta Greenlay. Me personally, I'll turn on my radio. You're welcome, Fallness. To Kurtz and Reed, just for the random stuff that they spit out. But it is always a fun time to listen to them on the radio with the feed going on in the background.
Yeah, I don't know what the situation is with LaPanta and Greenlay. I think FSN has kind of hung their hat on LaPanta a little bit. I know
he was their, quote, homegrown talent.
That's nice, but I'm not crazy about him, but I think if he had a good color guy, you could probably deal with LaPanta. But the fact that he has, I think it's a sign. Not to belabor the point. I think it's a sign that Walls is in the booth for a couple of games. I think that's a sign that FSN is seeing, feedback or actually listening to their own product and being like, this needs to get better. And I will say, actually, on Thursday's game, I actually was a little bit, I don't know if I want to use impressed as the word, but I think Greenlay made more of an attempt to, make educated points. I think that he sees what's happening. He's not a complete idiot. And he's making an attempt to be, I don't want to say more like Walls, but to make more educated, analysis, which is his job.
Right. It's like he got kicked in complacency or something.
Right.
And that's the week in review. Looking at the week ahead, as we said, the Wild finished up their 6-game homestand. They went 3-3, very underwhelming for a 6-game homestand. But they now have to hit the road, and if you are a fan of Eastern time zone games, boy, are you in for a treat this week, because the Wild have a 4-game road trip this week, all of which will be in the Eastern time zone. So you get your 6 or 6:30 starts. Well, we'll get to Montreal in a minute, but Montreal says 6:30, but somebody's number is being retired or honored before the game, so 7:30 is more likely.
Right.
No, the Wild start the week on Monday at Boston Garden against the Bruins. As I mentioned in my This Week in Hockey on zone coverage, David Backes out 8 weeks after having part of his colon removed.
Yeah, diverticulitis.
But the Bruins are kind of underwhelming right now. They've lost 4 out of 6. Really not a good start to the season as a whole for the Bruins. So you'd like to think there's a winnable game there. And then Wednesday, the Wild get the Toronto Maple Leafs, the run-and-gun Toronto Maple Leafs, where you are guaranteed a 5-4 game every night. So as I also noted, you better hope the Wild defense plays their best. Otherwise, the Maple Leafs are going to eat them alive. Also, fair chance in this game. This is where the Wild offense busts out of their slump, because the Maple Leaf defense and goaltending has been very much less than desirable to start the season. Then they are right back at it Thursday night in Montreal, Quebec. That place Patrick Roy played before he was unceremoniously traded after being left out there for, 8 goals? It was not good. The Wild have won 6 in a row against the Canadiens overall. So they will try to make it 7 Thursday night. And then the Wild close out the road trip Saturday night in Philadelphia against the Flyers. Like I said, all of these games are starting at either 6 or 6:30 Central Time. So if you're like me and you love the fact that those games are done by 9 o'clock and you have a reasonable amount of time to do something still with your evening before you have to call it a night, super.
Yeah.
Or you could just be Ben and live the luxurious life in the Pacific time zone every week.
I am not in the Pacific time zone this week, and you have no idea how happy that makes me, especially with the Wild schedule being what it is. But unfortunately for me, I will be in very important business meetings Monday through Wednesday this week, so I probably won't get to see those games live.
So that's the week ahead. Big week for the Wild because they are now 4 points behind 6th place in the Central Division. And, there is still plenty of time for them to climb out of this and get going. But, as we kind of touched on last week, it's maybe now getting concerning. We really don't know what the identity of this team is yet. Or maybe their identity is they seem uninterested.
Yeah, it feels like this is a team that is not put together just yet. It seems like this is a team that is still trying to find themselves, and that's weird because there's not that many new pieces to this team. Sure, there's been injuries, and obviously, Nino Granlund missing time, not a small deal, but this team shouldn't be having such a hard time finding their way. I mean, are they winning, the games that they're handed? They're winnable games? Sure. But they need to be winning those games against the Jets, those one-goal games against the Jets, those essentially one-goal games against the Blackhawks. They need to be getting wins out of those, or at least points out of those. I mean, we haven't seen them really fight for a tie, with the exception, I think, of the game in Carolina the first weekend. That's about it.
Yeah. Maybe this kind of a little more extended road trip will do this team some good.
Yeah.
Get some good team bonding in. Always helps a struggling team. Well, if you're a fan of whatever Ryan Suter says you're doing when you're out on team bonding trips, then yeah, you'll love it. But if you disagree, then too bad. You have to listen to what he says.
They're just having milk chugging contests, and they're going to see various tractor dealerships.
I don't know if they have a lot of tractor dealerships out in the eastern cities they're visiting.
Probably not. No.
On to our Bruce Boudreau quote of the week.
Hi, this is Bruce Boudreau. I don't see how in Toronto that they're calling it, unless it's a guy they just pulled in off the street that hasn't seen hockey before.
If I were the fans, I'd be booing even more because that, they pay good money for this.
If you want it, don't just think you want it. Go out and f***ing want it.
Your Bruce Boudreau quote of the week. The head coach didn't exactly have a lot of funny quotables like he normally does this week. Seemingly since the Wild dropped 2 out of 3, the coach was a little bit more of a realistic kind of a mood. So our quote of the week here is...
You need 5 guys thinking as one, and I think right now we've got 5 guys thinking as 5 guys. And so nobody can read what you're supposed to be doing.
He said this after the loss to Winnipeg on Tuesday night, in which he commented on the power play. So to add to my rant on the power play, Bruce Boudreau follows that up by saying, hey, everybody's thinking for themselves out there. Not a good thing to hear.
What's your opinion on Five Guys burgers?
You know what? I actually haven't been there in a long, long time.
Really? They're very good.
I thought it was pretty good the one time I was there, but I just haven't been back. So I'd like to get there. It's whether it's at home or at work. There's one always nearby. I just never get to it. So.
Yeah, I had some in Phoenix recently. I've heard people call it the best fast food burger out there, and I don't know.
Well, I'm gonna give that a run for its money in 2 weeks in Los Angeles with the In-N-Out burger.
I've had In-N-Out. I think it's a toss-up. I don't know. I just I don't want to offend anyone by picking a side here. I think they're both very good.
The other quote of the week that somebody actually replied to my GIF of this last night or Saturday night.
Yeah,
which is great. Somebody listens to this, but I showed a GIF of Bruce Boudreau yelling at the officials with 90 seconds left in the game, and he was livid from the non-penalties called on the Blackhawks in the third period. And I got him queued up as saying, F off, long pause, F you. So we'll add that into your quote of the week. But
Sure.
We'll roll with the one on the power play for the official Bruce Boudreau quote of the week.
Since that one was not quoted, it was
Right, that was just
Lip
lip reading.
lip read, yeah.
Yeah, but you can read that pretty clear. He's not trying to hide that.
Yeah, that no call on Riley was brutal. And then, it just adds salt to the wound that Kunin gets a very similar. I mean, he just taps, I forget which Blackhawk it was as he goes by. Then with a 4-minute power play and they score on it. Just minutes after Riley gets rocked right in the chin with a stick and no call. So, I mean, those things happen. It's not blaming the refs for that. It's just a very unfortunate turn of events.
Refs hate everyone.
Yeah, or you could take, Clarence Swamptown's stance and fire all refs into the sun.
I saw somebody up in Winnipeg write an article about how there's a ref bias against the Jets. I thought Wild fans were bad. Whoops.
There's not much to do up in Winnipeg.
No, not really. It's bad. There's a reason I haven't gotten up there yet. All right, that was a quote of the week. On to our weekly wager.
What's your bet, sir?
Ah, yes, the bet. Okay, what the hell? It makes very little sense to bet when you cannot win.
That's a solid troll. So last week's weekly wager was on the outcome of the World Series. Ben obviously won, and he is wearing an Astros shirt.
Yes.
To further rub my nose in it, I'm buying his beer.
Sure.
To pay off that debt. And then I also have a debt here to repay from a couple bets ago with the Calgary game in which we bet on Jaromir Jagr scoring a goal in which he got hurt. The benefit of that was a Jager bomb.
I feel like making you drink more alcohol isn't as much of a punishment as I had hoped.
No, as our friend Serious Mashup said on Twitter, the show is better when Giles was lit.
Yeah.
That is the brand we've established in 3 years of this podcast.
We've gotten several reviews that have said as such. Several.
What a great brand.
All right, so here's the play-by-play. Giles is not a fan of this particular brand of alcohol, I will say. I do rather enjoy Yag Bombs, but Giles is having a little bit of trouble stomaching this.
I'd rather smell hockey equipment than this.
Well, I've got that, too, if you want it. I mean, so it's choking it down. Yep. Wow, housing it. Attaboy. Well done.
Go big or go home.
I feel like those ones are always worse. People who stop midway, and then it's just, you can't, if you have a shot that you're dreading, it's just the worst psychological thing possible to only take half of it and then force yourself to finish off the other half.
So there you go. My debts are repaid, and you are making a comeback here. It is 3-2 favoring me in our weekly wagers, and of course we have the outstanding bet, the bet above all bets this year on the Timberwolves. Please consult our first show of the season to get the full deets on that bet.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
And it's not looking good for me in that department right now.
No, it's not.
The Wolves are streaking, which is bad news for me, good news for everyone else who loves the Wolves.
Yes.
On to our...
This week's...
Yeah, the wager of the week. So we had to think about this a little bit, but
we can't bet on the Wild every week because
we gotta keep it.
That leads to a lot of trouble.
Yeah. And it leads us to wanting things sometimes unfortunate to happen to our favorite squad. So we try to keep a broad perspective on other sports that are happening,
right?
And to go with a football themed wager. No,
football.
not the soccer kind that the Brits love to call football. It's American football, and we're dipping into the Vikings. God help us. We've entered a dark, dark place of the internet.
Yes.
but we have a wager on one Ted Bridgewater, who's slated to be activated this week. And the bet will be on over-under of 0.5 touchdowns for Bridgewater.
So if he starts,
Sunday.
that looks pretty decent for you, I feel like. If he doesn't start, I'm pretty much a lock.
I've been an eternal optimist of Teddy Bridgewater, as referenced many times on this show before. And I'm clearly taking the over. He is going to come back, and he is going to do great things.
Sure.
And he will win me a bet.
Good. So, do we go... I think we go Twitter Avy on this one. Week-long Twitter Avy.
All right.
I think that's more befitting this particular...
Should we make this Vikings theme, too?
Yeah.
All
yeah,
right.
let's make a Viking-themed Twitter Avy.
I'll let you lead with this. What is my Avy going to be for a week if I lose?
You know, I don't know. I'll have to find something. I'm assuming mine would be Teddy or something to that effect.
No,
No?
I'm going to
Okay.
make this much, much worse.
Oh, God, no! I just thought of something that it could be, and that's terrible.
What is it?
I'm not even going to give you the idea because I don't want to change your mind if you have something else in mind.
Your Avy's going to be Paul Allen and Wabi.
God! Why is this a PG podcast? Yeah, that's what I feared. All right. Yeah, no, that's fine. I'll take my chances on that.
All right.
Team Case.
Yikes. So, yeah, that is our weekly wager. We do update the running tally on our Twitter, our podcast Twitter handle at GATG Wild Podcast as the bets are finalized. That was our weekly wager segment. Now on to one of our favorite segments, jerseys.
Here to start the third period. What team is this? It's not Team USA. Well, yes, it is. They've got on new uniforms. They're wearing the logo of the Duck. I've never seen this before.
Man, am I excited to go to a hockey game in 2 weeks and put on the logo of the Duck. For those who are new with this segment, every week we have a team of the week, and we are going through and imagining what a third jersey would look like with Adidas next year, as third jerseys will seemingly be rolled out. Last week, obviously, we didn't have much to work with the Montreal Canadiens, who have had the same look for the last 50 years.
Plus,
this week, we have another Canada team, the Toronto Maple Leafs, who have had very good looks over the years, but they are not afraid to have third jerseys, which is very nice.
Yeah.
And I have to imagine, just because it's the Toronto Maple Leafs and they always do a good job of creating or throwing back to a different era of jerseys, that they're probably going to make some kind of throwback jersey for next year.
yeah, I would think so. That's what all of their third jerseys have been some kind of nod to the past, which is totally understandable. So I don't know. I kind of vary on what I would like to see out of said jersey. Would you like to see them go way back and kind of keep the same lifelike crest? Or do you want to see the 1968 through 2016 crest?
I guess what I'm expecting is, I think their third jersey will be, they will throw back. They've always seemingly put on a throwback as their third uniform, which you can never go wrong with. And I think it'll be more of a nod to, I don't want to say it'll be a nod to the one they had a few years ago when Kessel was there, where the leaf was kind of a little more of the pointy.
Sure.
Like this one.
Uh-huh.
As referenced on NHLuniforms.com, the 1967 through 1970. But just because it's the Toronto Maple Leafs and, they're now over 100 years old, I wouldn't be surprised if they dipped further into the bag and went with something really, really old. Like this one here that has 3 stripes.
Imagine that. But only 2 stripes on the blue jersey. That's weird.
Thought they could go with that. This is from 1934 to 1937.
Yeah.
They could go with a third jersey at home that is white.
What?
Ooh.
Madness.
Yeah, makes
Madness.
me angry.
You know what? And I thought about this after we had our conversation about the white at home versus on the road argument. We really should see more color on color matchups in the NHL. I think it would be absolutely beautiful.
It's not.
I don't understand. I mean,
I'm not against that.
Right, and so like we talked about the Wild having green jerseys, and then you're always seeing green on green. I mean, unless the Sharks or the Stars are visiting town, the other teams could wear their colored jerseys, and it would be an absolutely beautiful matchup. Nothing against white jerseys, but color on color just looks really good sometimes.
Don't be afraid.
Unless the Predators are involved.
Predators versus Penguins. Just imagine if they both put on their white jerseys. No, I don't think the Toronto Maple Leafs are going to go with their green Toronto St.
Pat's.
jerseys.
No, I doubt that.
Maybe they could go with something like this.
The Arenas jerseys?
The Arenas jerseys, because there's a lot of emphasis on the collar, which Adidas clearly favors.
Okay, did you see Michigan State on Friday night?
Woo.
Oh my God, they were wearing bibs. Like it was like they took the Adidas thing and like ran with it.
Fake Don Lucia on Twitter really drove that home.
Yeah, no, they literally looked like they were at a local barbecue joint and or seafood joint, and they were wearing gigantic bibs.
That was not good.
I made a goalie back when the goalie neck protectors were solid white. I made that joke on Twitter, and it didn't hit home with anyone, but that's what it looked like.
My roommate suggested to me to rank all the Big Ten jerseys, so you'll find Michigan State closer to the bottom of that list.
Yeah.
When I get to it.
Gross.
When I have some free time.
What are they thinking?
So all right, that's jerseys. Like Toronto obviously is going to go with some kind of throwback with this.
Yeah.
What they do, how they do.
That's fine.
Like,
I mean, they have plenty of decent designs to pick from, and it'll just be how they manage to modernize it, I think, is the biggest thing.
Maybe they'll really get the 80s crowd going by dipping into
the Wendell Clark era.
Yeah.
That'd be a lot of fun.
That would be great. So that's jerseys. We have one final segment for you, and that is the GATG mailbag, which we have not opened here in a couple weeks. But so we've had some guests, so we've tried to make the time work. But we have opened up the mailbag this week, and boy, oh boy, there's a lot of stuff in the box from the same person on the mailbag.
Our friend Serious Mashup from Austria, what I would like to call Erolf Pleist us, is what happened to our mailbag today. We got Erolf Pleist by Serious Mashup today.
So before we hit our Twitter questions, we did get a question on our Facebook page.
Oh, fun.
From an old high school friend of mine, Chris Williams. He asked if we will see Kyle Rao get moved up to the big club this year. And I looked it up, and he started off the year hurt.
Yeah, he's hurt.
He's been back. He's played in now 7 games, I believe, and he has 3 points on the season, so not a great start for him. So it's going to take a tremendous hot streak, and the Wild probably getting a little bit more decimated by injuries for him to get a call up. So I'm probably going to say he's
pretty low on the list.
Not going to see Minnesota this year. Probably see Iowa all year, but because I am an eternal Gopher optimist, I'll say sure, there'll be a random instance where he gets called up just so we can print some Rao Wild jerseys.
I mean, it seems like the team prefers Landon Ferraro as a call-up. They probably prefer a guy like Berchi or a guy like Mitchell who's been up a little bit. I mean, Rao did play some NHL games with Florida, so it's not completely out of the realm of possibility. But it just, I don't. I mean, unless he goes on some kind of tear. That being said, he still very possibly could get a cameo this year. I mean, he could get a 2 or 3 game cameo, if they have a guy banged up a little bit. I don't know that. I really wouldn't count on him getting any extended look at all. And he's organizational depth as much as, I hate to say it, being a Kyle Rowell fan.
For those wondering, no player in the history of the Minnesota Wild has worn the uniform number 92.
Oh, interesting.
So if Kyle Rowell did get a call-up.
You sure about that? Like, why do I feel like Branko Radvojevic wore or something? What number do he wear?
92.
Oh, really?
This is what happens when I guess at facts before I actually look it up.
Because you said that, I was like, God, I seem to remember 92.
I thought he was 93.
Oh, okay.
But
92.
No, Branko Radvojevic is 92.
I cannot believe I nailed that.
I can't wait until Rao gets his 1-game call-up, and my household will have a Justin Kluse 82 and a Kyle Rao 92 jersey.
Priorities.
Ooh. Quickly dipping back into the jersey thing. So my roommate, he got the Justin Kluse jersey.
Sure.
He ordered it on NHL Shop.
Yeah.
And it was a replica. And there are some subtle differences on the replicas from the authentics.
Oh, yeah?
Like, Reebok was... The only thing that made a Reebok jersey authentic from replica was the fight strap.
Yeah.
Adidas is much, much different.
Yeah.
First of all, there's no Adidas on the back of the jersey.
Yeah, no, it's, what's it called?
Fanatics.
Fanatics, yeah.
Yep. They slap their Fanatics tag on the front. And...
Awful.
The on the Wild jersey, the M on the shoulder, it's a little thicker than the...
Weird.
Which was I actually had to compare it. I was like, this doesn't look right. And it ended up being a little thicker, and everything's like heat pressed on. It's not stitched.
Oh.
But...
For what was probably $180 too, or something obscene like that.
I think they're a little cheaper.
Okay, well, still,
yeah,
stitching isn't that expensive.
It's thread. Let's be honest. But no, I found the little differences interesting, especially considering Reebok almost had no differences.
No,
at
they were
all.
very similar. Yeah,
but quality of the jersey I like a lot better. Anyway. Back into the mailbag. We did get a lot of Twitter questions on our podcast feed at GATG Wild Podcast.
Uh-huh.
As I said, our Facebook.com/GATG Wild Podcast. We are trying to do post-game shows after every game. But yeah, no, we've got a lot of Twitter questions from our friend Serious Mashup, so we're going to try and get through them here. Well, okay, let's get to the non-serious mashup Twitter questions first.
Sure.
From our friend Taylor Calais. So the Wild will live in the middle forever, never winning at all, never a train wreck.
I mean, forever might be a little harsh.
This is exact. No, I mean, I don't know about forever, but like since Chuck Fletcher has taken over, this is exactly what they've been.
Yeah.
When they were bad,
yeah.
They were still middle of the pack. They were at the bottom end of middle of the pack.
Yeah.
But they were still considered middle of the pack. They were never bad. And
yep.
I have many times over the 3 years of this show have wondered if there was some kind of plan to keep them that way instead of actually saying, okay, let's just nosedive and try and get a high draft pick.
I think the Parisi Suter signings, weren't bad in that, we've been over this a million times, how that affected the trajectory of this franchise. And it just made things a lot different. It kept this team from tanking, essentially, because Craig Leopold spends a lot of money getting those guys here. And then, there's new expectations on that team that probably wasn't ready for it yet. So, it's all shoulda, woulda, coulda at this point. But, yeah, I think as long as Parisi and Suter on this team, I don't know if they'll win a championship. Gun to my head, I'm going to say no. But will there be a rebuild after those contracts? Yeah, but that's 8 years from now. You can't expect that.
I would argue against that, and I would say that I think you would see a rebuild towards the end of
their contracts.
Sure, I'd say in the
Make
last
more sense.
3 years maybe, especially considering if the Wild get out from under the Parise contract thanks to an amnesty buyout of the next lockout.
Yeah. Or they somehow find a way to Marian Hossa him.
Honestly, like, I more and more get the feeling that, like, this is it. Like, this year, like, they have to make some kind of a meaningful playoff run, otherwise you're not going to. You're not going to get that from this core of players. And I say that in the fact that Chuck Fletcher really just doesn't seem to want to make a meaningful impact trade like we just saw today, where a 3-team trade sent Matt Duchene to the Ottawa Senators and Kyle Turris to the Nashville Predators. That's something I wish Chuck Fletcher had a little bit more of it, was he was a little bit more bold in his trades. David Poile is very bold. He rolls the dice, and yeah, he usually hits, but he's not afraid to say, yo, let's go. And if you look at his roster, there is not a lot of players on his roster that were there from, like, him drafting or free agency, trades.
Right.
Like, especially in this NHL, like, drafting and trades is how you're going to build a good team. And if the Wild are just going to rely on free agency to build a team, then that's not good.
Yeah.
Especially when you continually trade away draft picks. Like, the Wild have, a decent amount of draft picks for the 2018 draft, but who knows what'll happen before now on the deadline.
Right. No, I think the biggest, he's made some big-ish trades, but they haven't really worked out all that well. The Brett Burns trade didn't really work out all that well. The Martin Hanzal trade didn't really go particularly well for them. The Jason Pominville trade went well enough, but then they extended Pominville and he got hurt.
Well, that's the thing, is people say Pominville trade was bad, but no.
It really wasn't.
I'd say it was good because you traded for a year and a half of Pominville, which you got very good production.
Yeah.
He missed the last part of that first year because he had a concussion, but then he came back, he had a very good next year.
Yep.
But then that's when he got that extension, and so that kicked in. And if you look at what went back to Buffalo,
Matt Hackett.
Yeah, Matt Hackett, like, just kind of washed out.
Yeah.
He's still floating around the AHL, but injuries really just, like, derailed his career.
Right.
And Johan Larsson is a serviceable bottom 6 player for them, but he's nothing special.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'd argue that the Wild did really good. And they sent their first-round pick, Zadorov, that they got out of that, to Colorado in the Ryan O'Reilly trade.
Yeah.
I don't see, the Pominville trade as a failure. The contract extension is a different story, but
yeah. No, the trade was good.
Anyway, that was a lot. We got very ranty.
It doesn't sound like us.
It is our anniversary show.
Sure.
But anyway, let's see. We got another question from Adam Nelson at Denver Wild fan. I salute you, sir, Denver Wild fan, living out there. You are a saint. What does Granlund need to do to get on the score sheet? Awful shot accuracy, added defensive attention seems to shake him up. This is actually a pretty good question because Granlund is second full week back, and you expect a little bit more out of him, and I've been pretty disappointed in him. He's just been kind of bland in terms of really anything, and the Koivu, Granlund, Zucker line is more of a production of Koivu and Zucker right now. And the reason that line was hitting the score sheet a lot last year was because they were all clicking at the same time. And right now they only really have 2 out of the 3 guys clicking, which is Koivu and Zucker.
Yeah, it's tough. I think, he got a lot of freedom last year because he had never done anything before, so defenders gave him a lot of space. And this was actually noted by Greenland Thursday night, where he was given, he was given more attention than before. And when you have a 69-point season,
nice,
that's going to happen. That's what happens when you almost touch 70 points. That's a pretty big milestone in the NHL. So, I think like he needs to just find a new comfort level with that with getting the coverage that he gets. He's got incredible vision. He's a good passer. If he's getting more defensive attention, that should only make things even better for the players that he plays with. And maybe, last year was kind of an off-the-charts shooting year for him. I think the adjustment that he's going to have to make is he's going to have to become a little more pass-happy than maybe he was last year. Last year he shot really well. This year he's going to really have to use that space that's taken away from him and given to his line mates, to your point.
And last year Granlund shot 14.7%.
It's pretty good.
Which was up from 8.1 the last 2 seasons.
Yeah.
Your point, I don't know if Granlund can really ever repeat, almost hitting 70 points.
No.
I think he's going to be a guy who's probably going to get you somewhere in the range of 15 to 20 goals scored a season, just by his career shooting percentage. And then I think he's good for, 40, 45 assists per year. And if he can do better than that, great. But I think that's realistically what you're expecting out of him at this point.
Yeah, that's a 60-point player.
You can't expect him to be a 70-point player every year. Anyway, on we go. Oh, we dip into the serious mashup portion of the mailbag.
Barrel.
Shout out to him for finding this.
For coming back with a vengeance.
He did move, so that probably explained his
Yeah, that's true.
What's wrong with Boudreau? He seemed a bit clueless and confused in recent post-game pressers. Or is it just me? # probably.
Probably just you. I think every coach struggles to find answers when his team isn't playing well, and that's maybe what you're seeing because, and Boudreau talked about this when he talked about Dumba, is you can lead a horse to water. You can make all the grandiose plans you want for a team.
Right.
You can try to push all the right buttons, but at the end of the day, the players still play the game.
On the ice, yeah. More from Serious Mashup. Tuck and Holla are lighting it up in Vegas. Why, God, why? To which I reply, sad Batman in the rain gif.
Yeah, it's really not fair, and if we had a chance to do that whole expansion deal over again, I think we probably would. But what do you do? It's tough.
What's wrong with Joel Eriksson Ek? A bit invisible on the ice. I don't know if I'd say invisible. I think he's been there, just shuffling lines, especially early in the year. As I said, he's really strong on the puck, and I think his points will come. It's just it's just getting the lines figured out right now, and you get Coyle back next month, and you're really going to have a full roster. So give him a little time. He's also still I don't even think he's hit 40 NHL games yet. So
no, not even close. No, the big thing is, and this is actually a point made by our friend Tony from Hockey Wilderness. He's been hurt by injuries probably the most because if you look at it now, his line mates are Foligno and Stewart for the most part, and it's those players are fine for what they are, and I'm not going to say they don't belong on a hockey team or they should be jettisoned into the sun or anything, like some people, but they're not going to create a whole lot of offense, and they're not going to play tremendous defense getting you going the other way on fast breaks either. So I think if Eriksson Ek plays between Parise and Coyle, I think you've got a totally different situation going. But those are the two men that are hurt. So he's got two lumbering. I can't even really call them power forwards, but wannabe power forwards on his wings. And there's not going to be a whole lot of offense generated there because, let's face it, those two just aren't very skilled players when you boil it all down, relatively speaking.
Where will the Wild pick in the first round of the upcoming draft? Well, sir, that would imply the Wild still have their first round pick. And if they do, the optimist in me wants to say late in the first round, but then there's the realist in me that says mid-first round.
Yeah.
If they still have that pick.
Yeah.
Which, you know what? Let's be honest, like I said earlier, this is a team that, realistically might be their like real last kick at the can with this core of players. So I would believe that there will be some kind of trade closer to the deadline to get an upgrade in here for this team. Lord knows what that'll be. But I would be surprised if the Wild hold on to their first-round pick.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. Asking us to predict where the Wild are going to pick is basically asking us where they're going to finish in the playoffs. I don't know. I mean, it's especially right now, this team is so up in the air. You can definitely see them recovering from these injuries and having a good season. You could definitely see these injuries really kind of altering the trajectory of their season. So it's really tough either way to... you can really see it going either way. I don't have a good read on, it's definitely changed. The optimism is not as much as it was there before, but who knows?
As Russo elaborated, put in air quotes because I don't think he elaborated. It was asked to him, and he kind of poo-pooed that. But Dumba might get traded. What would his trade value right now be? What kind of asset should the Wild go after? Well, nationally, Matt Dumba's highlight this last week was a drop pass to Nick Ehlers for a goal. So he doesn't have a lot of value right now. And realistically, he's only getting moved if the Wild are really trying to make a big splash on the trade market. But honestly, I don't know who that's going to be during the season. At least if, they were going to try to do that.
Yeah.
Which I don't think they are because the biggest chip out there, Matt Duchene, just got traded.
Right. Yeah, and I think the fact that he's, that would leave Spurgeon as the only remaining right-handed defenseman on their team. I just don't see a deal for that just because they'd have to get a right-handed defenseman back. Otherwise, they're really putting their defense beyond the 8-ball. With both of your bottom pairs playing on their offhand. I don't get it. I mean, I think that, despite Dumba's turnovers and the very public turnover and benching, I think 30 other NHL teams would like to have him just because they can see if they can develop him because there's a lot of potential there, and he's only 22, 23. So it just, I don't see it happening. I don't think the Wild, as much as they paid to hang on to him and Brodin this summer, I don't see them giving up that quickly.
Make a swap with Toronto. Dumba for Nylander, done. Any news on when Charlie Coyle is back? Well, he started kind of moving around and training again, but realistically probably isn't going to be at the earliest until, maybe the second week of December.
Yeah, I don't think he's not skating yet. I know he's got the boot off, correct? I believe I heard that. So, yeah, we're still, I would say, an easy month. An easy month away.
He started finally working out again. He's got to work off all those big omelets that he has eaten in the last month.
Right.
Eric Stahl, best Fletcher contract in his time with the Wild.
Probably. I mean, it's not to give Fletcher too much credit, but Stahl was coming off some pretty bad seasons in Carolina.
That was a huge roll of the dice.
And, so the bargain was there, but, I mean... Yeah, credit to Fletcher for believing enough in Stahl to give him the contract that he did. I mean, it's an incredible contract. If you could get that contract for 5 years, you'd probably take it because it's just so affordable.
I'd argue that or the Devin Dubnyk contract are the two best of
that's a
Fletcher's
very good one as well.
Time.
As far as the way they're
Fletcher's
structured.
had some bad ones. Don't get me wrong.
Right. What's his worst contract? I guess Preezine and Suter aside. Probably... I mean, Pominville, but I don't know that you could really even say Pominville was definitely, because at the time it made a lot of sense. Marcus Foligno.
Marcus Foligno's probably going to give him a run for the money. I got to say, it's like giving out the big contracts to just like grinders like Torrey Mitchell or like Matt Cook. Like, there's no reason to sign these guys to 3-year deals.
Yeah.
Like, signing fourth liners to anything longer than 2 years is an abomination.
Yeah.
In my opinion. And you give Marcus Foligno a 4-year contract. Yikes.
I don't get it either.
But anyway, we got some food questions here. Try French onion soup called gratini. Gratine?
Sure.
Tell me that's not a meal. Cheese overkill.
I feel like this is a challenge from Serious Mashup, and I'm not sure how to feel about it.
He's calling you out.
No, I realize that, but I think, if he... I don't know, if you throw enough cheese in something, I'm going to eat it, and I'm not a hater of soup. I don't know, it would have to be pretty impressive in order for me to declare that a meal. I mean, I love cheese, but a block of cheese isn't a meal either.
Is it now? I'm just kidding. Would you consider Czech goulash a meal? How would Jaromir Jagr answer?
I think he's trying to get me in trouble here. My girlfriend is 100% Czech, so I don't know if I feel comfortable. I mean, goulash is a casserole, right? It's a hot dish, casserole, whatever.
I think
that's
so.
A meal. It's a pasta and meat. How is that not a meal?
I'm looking up what's in.
I mean, a goulash. It's pasta and meat and various ingredients. There's no broth involved. I don't know what Serious Mashup is getting at here.
I've never had a Czech goulash, so
I haven't either, and I've been with a Czech girl for a year now, so I don't know what to tell you.
That's the mailbag. Thank you, everyone, for sending in your questions.
Yeah, late notice, but made it work.
Yeah.
Thanks to Serious Mashup.
Final thought. I guess I will lead to give you some time to think about it, but I have two. One, the Matt Duchene trade that finally happened. Nashville, the rich get richer. Nashville, I already thought, a good team. They get even better. They've got Ryan Johansson, Nick Bonino, and now Kyle Turris going down the middle at center. That is very, very good. And Nashville hasn't gotten off to the greatest start this year, but come playoff time, they're going to be a very tough out again. So don't sleep on them. Colorado clearly is going down now after this, so
down further.
The Wild will at least move up a spot in the division for you, negative Nancy's out there. And my other final thought is, hey, this is our 3-year anniversary show. So it's still crazy to believe that it's been 3 years of this podcast, but we're still going. And we get better. At least I think so.
Yeah, I actually had a listener. I met a listener last night out with our friend Panda Pete's birthday. And he said we had a good product, and I was rather blown away by that. And it's still mind-blowing to me, as I'm sure it is to you, having fans. Like, there are people who are fans of our show, and that's... I mean, call them what you will, but it's weird to me. Like, it's really kind of surreal to look at the downloads and see them increasing every week and every month and every year. And we just had the best month we ever had in October, and it's crazy. I can't tell you enough, the fans enough, how much we appreciate the support that we've gotten and how awesome it is to have a community, to have running bits, to have recurring fans and that kind of thing. It's really kind of been a very special journey over 3 years.
Well, I guess when you're an otherwise fine podcast, you have some fans out there.
Otherwise fine. What is your favorite moment from the last 3 years? What's your favorite memory of the Giles and the Goalies podcast?
I think you can find anything that instantly comes to memory in our clip show.
Yes, yeah, that's a good time to mention that. We had a clip show this summer. That was a lot of highlights / lowlights of this podcast. So check that out if you're not familiar.
I can't really hit one. I've got two, and they're guest related.
Yeah.
The first of which was when we had Chad Graff come on, and that was really when we really kind of took off. Was once we had Chad on, we really started kind of getting it together, and we really upped our game. But when Chad was on, he shared a story of Ilya Brizgalov in a Pittsburgh bar with him and Mike Russo, and he started talking about Russian politics.
Right.
And he literally just looked at Russo and was like, "This is all you, man."
Right.
We were laughing pretty good, and that was really great. And hopefully get Chad back on again at some point to maybe get another story or two out of him. But and then the other one was a little bit more recently when we had the big Craig Custance join our show.
Jesus.
And he literally slammed you on soup not being a meal.
Yeah, I don't know if he slammed me, but he just was very emphatic about saying that, yes, absolutely soup is a meal.
However you take it, he said soup was a meal, and I've got Craig Custance in my pocket on the soup is a meal debate.
Yeah, I just... I think the memories, my favorite ones for me were probably...
Well, there's probably a lot of memories out there that I don't remember.
The thing that was unfortunate for me is how many podcasts that were really good that we lost. And we had a lot of fun with those. I mean, you and Charlie in a booth not far from here.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun, and we lost so many of those episodes, and they were such good stuff.
Our first season, like if you actually go through, like I actually on iTunes, I went through and because you can now put like seasons and episodes on iTunes.
Yeah.
So I went through and I put season 1 episode blah blah blah, and I did it all the way through. So it was like I think about season 1, and we had so many good shows in there lost. I think we probably had about a good 8 or 9 shows.
Oh yeah.
That we just never got to see the light of day. And as you said, a lot of them were so good because we had some good bits early on, like visiting Wild players' hometowns, some of which never saw the light of day. That
Right.
we were in tears.
There was a joke that I forget what it was that I made about like Drew Barrymore doing coke or something when she was 14. That we all basically like couldn't continue the show anymore because we were laughing so hard, and that episode was lost, and that still pains me to this day. I have to admit.
Unfortunately for me, the episode where I spilled a drink on myself was kept.
Yeah, and the episode where you started singing Pitbull.
Well, that was I think that was the post Charlie days.
Yes, yeah, that was after Charlie, yes.
For those who are unfamiliar, at the beginning of our time, we did have a third member of this podcast, Charlie Beatty, who is going on to bigger and better things. Someday we'll have him back on as a popular announcer.
Yes, it was Giles and the Goalies.
Yeah, it was plural.
Plural
And
at the
if you
beginning.
noticed on Friday when I tweeted out the link to our first show from the podcast account, I used the now vintage
Yes.
photo.
It was
of
weird to see that.
Wild Extra Giles and the Goalies podcast. Hopefully the shareholders at Zone Coverage did not get angry at us for doing so.
But they have shareholders?
Sure.
You mean Tom?
Tom Schreier.
Okay, yeah.
Our most frequent guest.
Yes, that's true.
But no, that can probably wrap it up. It's been a fun one, and we try to make this program better all the time.
Yeah.
So that's what we
Hopefully
aim
you
for.
enjoy it.
That's what we'll try to do the next 3 years.
Right. We'll see.
Yeah. So yeah, that'll wrap it up for us. Thank you for following along. You can follow Ben and I on Twitter at Giles Farrell, at Ben Wormington. Follow our podcast on Twitter at GATG Wild Podcast. Follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/GATG Wild Podcast, or Instagram, GATG Wild Podcast. Please sense the theme in finding us on social media. We will be doing some more Facebook Live post-game recaps. Actually, might try to dip into the Twitter Periscope post-game recap this week and see what happens. You can find our show on Libsyn. That is our host site. You can find us on iTunes, obviously. Please give us a rating on iTunes. We love them. We are, as I have said, an otherwise fine podcast. You can find us on Stitcher, Google Play. We are briefly on Spreaker right now. We are trying to get that bumped to like iHeart, YouTube as well.
Oh, sure.
It's in the works. You can find Ben and I writing at zonecoverage.com/wild, or just check out zonecoverage.com. We've got all your Minnesota sports covered. We've got the ever so popular Wolves covered pretty good right now. We've assembled quite an all-star team. Yeah. And I think I got it all.
Yeah, that's it.
So, yeah, thank you for listening. Thank you for rating if you did. Somebody please give us our 30th iTunes rating. We need that.
Yeah.
Get us
the
back
desert
over to that
needs the
other
rain.
Wild podcast that nobody likes.
Right.
No, I forget what it's called. But anyway, it's like all the ratings on it are terrible. Somebody rate us, please.
Yes. Okay.
Anyway, so yeah, thank you for listening, and we will catch you again next week.
Later.
St. Paul, Minnesota. Minneapolis, Minnesota.
We are ducks, and ducks fly together.
It's not resiliency. You're making it sound like we're good. That's all. I'm done.